Hello viewers, welcome back to our channel Career Prep. Today we'll learn how to solve problems related to percentages based on marks. Being thorough with the concept and formulae of percentages will make solving these problems easier. Please watch our video on percentages for all the details. Since questions based on these topics are most frequently asked in competitive exams, it makes sense to understand the concept well. These questions are the ones where marks can be scored easily if practiced well. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel. Also press the bell icon to get notifications as soon as we post a new video. So let's start. Ravi scored 344 marks out of 400 marks and his elder brother Balram scored 582 marks out of 600 marks. Whose percentage score is better? Now it's given that Ravi scored 344 marks out of 400 marks. So to find the percentage of marks scored by Ravi, you have to multiply 344 divided by 400 with 100. So when you simplify this, you'll get 344 divided by 4, which is 86%. Now it's given that Balram scored 582 marks out of 100. So to find the percentage of marks scored by Balram, multiply 582 divided by 600 with 100. When you simplify this, you'll get 582 divided by 6, which is 97%. So percentage of marks scored by Ravi is 86%. Percentage of marks scored by Balram is 97%. Hence, the percentage marks scored by Balram is better. For Reena to clear an examination, she must score 55% marks. If she gets 120 marks and fails by 78 marks, what is the total marks for the examination? So it's given that marks obtained by Reena is 120 and she fails by 78 marks. This means that if she had scored 78 more marks, she would have passed. Therefore, the passing marks is 120 plus 78, which is 198. Now, we do not know the total marks. So let the total marks be M. It's given that to clear the exam, Reena must score 55% marks. That is 55% of M. Now when you compare equation 1 and equation 2, you'll get 55% of M is equal to 198. That is 55 divided by 100 multiplied by M is equal to 198. So M is equal to 198 multiplied by 100 divided by 55, which is 360. So the total marks for the examination is 360. If A got 80 marks and B got 60 marks, then what percent of A's marks is B's marks? It's given that A's marks is 80, B's marks is 60. We do not know what percent of A's marks is B's marks. So let X percent of A's marks be B's marks. So X percent of A is equal to B. This means X divided by 100 multiplied by 80 is equal to 60. So X is equal to 60 multiplied by 100 divided by 80. On solving this, you will get X is equal to 75. This means that B's marks is 75% of A's marks. In an examination, a student secured 30% marks and failed by 12 marks. In the same examination, another student secured 40 marks and got 28 marks more than the minimum marks to pass. What is the maximum marks in the examination? So we have to find out what is the maximum marks in the examination. So let maximum marks in the examination be M. We also don't know what is the passing marks. So let passing marks be P. Now it's given that a student secured 30% marks and failed by 12 marks. This means that if he had scored 12 more marks, he would have passed. So for student 1, 30% marks plus 12 is the passing marks. This means that 30 divided by 100 multiplied by m plus p is equal to p. It's also given that another student secured 40% marks and got 28 marks more than the minimum marks to pass. This means that if he had scored 20, if he had even scored 28 marks less, he would have passed. So 40% marks minus 28 is equal to P, that is 40 divided by 100 multiplied by M minus 28 is equal to P. Now comparing equations 1 and 2, we get 30 divided by 100 multiplied by M plus 12 is equal to 40 divided by 100 multiplied by M minus 28, because P is the same in both the equations. Now to solve this equation, bring 30m divided by 100 to the right hand side. It will become minus 30m divided by 100. Take minus 28 to the left hand side. It will become plus 28. So 40m divided by 100 minus 30m divided by 100 is 10m divided by 100. 12 plus 28 is 40. So now you get 10m divided by 100 is equal to 40. So m is equal to 400. So the maximum marks in the examination is 400. Sita's mathematics test had 75 problems, that is 10 arithmetic, 30 algebra and 35 geometry problems. Although she answered 70% of the arithmetic, 40% of algebra and 60% of the geometry problems correctly, she did not pass the test because she got less than 60% of the problems right. How many more questions she would have needed to answer correctly to earn a 60% passing grade? Now it's given that the mathematics test had 75 problems, that is 10 arithmetic, 30 algebra and 35 geometry problems. Sita answered 70% of 10 arithmetic problems correctly. She answered 40% of 30 algebra problems correctly and 60% of 35 geometry problems correctly. So the number of questions answered correctly by Sita is equal to 70% of 10 plus 40% of 30 plus 60% of 35. So 70% of 10 is 7, 40% of 30 is 12, 60% of 35 is 21. So number of questions correctly answered is 7 plus 20, 12 plus 21, which is 40. So Sita answered 40 questions correctly. Now it's given that Sita did not pass the test because she got less than 60% of the problems correct. So if she had got 60% of, it's given that the mathematics test has 75 problems. So if she had got 60% of 75 problems correct, then she would have got a 60% grade. So questions to be answered correctly to get 60% grade is equal to 60% of 75, which is 45. So Sita should have answered 45 questions correctly. but she had answered only 40 questions correctly. So to get 60% grade, she should have answered 5 more questions. That is 45 minus 40, which is 5. So Sita would have needed to answer 5 more questions correctly to earn a 60% passing grade. Two students appeared in an examination. One of them secured 9 marks more than the other, and his marks was 56% of the sum of their marks. What was the marks obtained by them? So we have to find out the marks obtained by the two students. We also do not know the sum of their marks. We have to find that out as well. Now, let the marks of one student be M. We know that the other scored 9 marks more than the first student. So the marks of the other student is M plus 9. And the sum of their marks is M plus 9, which is 2M plus 9. So sum of their marks is 2M plus 9. Now it's given that one of the students secured 9 marks more than the other, and his marks was 56% of the sum of their marks. We know that the sum of their marks is 2M plus 9. So 56% of the sum of their marks is 56% of 2M plus 9. So it's given that M plus 9 is equal to 56 divided by 100 multiplied by 2M plus 9. Now when you divide 56 and 100 by 4, you will get 14 divided by 25. And on cross multiplication, you will get 25 multiplied by M plus 9 is equal to 14 multiplied by 2M plus 9, which is nothing but 25M plus 225 is equal to 28M plus 126. When you solve this equation, you will get 3M is equal to 99 or M is equal to 33. So one of the students scored 33 marks. Now the other student scored 9 marks more than this student. So the other student scored 33 plus 9, which is 42. So their marks are 42 and 33. A student secures 90%, 60%, and 54% marks in test papers with 100, 150, and 200 respectively as maximum marks. What is the percentage of his aggregate? Now it's given that in the first paper, the maximum marks is 100. The second paper, 150 is the maximum marks. And in the third paper, 200 is the maximum marks. Now a student secures 90% out of 100 marks in the first paper. In the second paper, he secures 60% out of 150 marks. And in the third paper, he secures 54% out of 200 marks. So the total marks secured by the student is equal to 90% of 100 plus 60% of 150 plus 54% of 200. This can be written as 90 divided by 100 multiplied by 100 plus 60 divided by 100 multiplied by 150 plus 54 divided by 100 multiplied by 200. Now here zeros get cancelled and you get 90 here. Here also you can cancel out the zeros and 15 into 6 is 90. Here you can cancel out the zeros and 54 multiplied by 2 is 108. So 90 plus 90 plus 108 is 288. So the total marks secured is 288. Now the total maximum marks is 100 plus 150 plus 200, which is 450. So the student scored 288 marks out of 450. So his aggregate marks is 288 divided by 450. But we have to find out the percentage of his aggregate. So you have to multiply his aggregate by 100. So aggregate percentage is equal to 288 divided by 450 multiplied by 100, which is 64%. So the aggregate percentage is 64%. 1,100 boys and 700 girls are examined in a test. 42% of the boys and 30% of the girls pass. What is the percentage of the total who have failed? So first you have to find the number of students who have failed and then find the percentage of the total who failed. Now it's given that 1,100 boys and 700 girls are examined in a test. So the total number of students is 1,100 plus 700, which is 1,800. So 1,800 students are examined in a test. Now it's given that 42% of the boys and 30% of the girls pass. This means that 42% out of 1,100 boys have passed and 30% out of 700 girls have passed. So the number of students who passed is equal to 42% of 1,100 plus 30% of 700. 42% of 1,100 is 462 and 30% of 700 is 210. So 462 plus 210 is 672. So 672 students have passed the exam. We know that the total number of students is 1,800 and total number of students who have passed is 672. So the number of students who failed is equal to 1,800 minus 672, which is 1,128. So 1,128 students out of 1,800 students have failed. But we are asked to find the percentage of the total who failed. So you have to multiply that with 100. So the percentage of the total who failed is equal to 1,128 divided by 1,800 multiplied by 100, which is 62, 2 by 3%. In an examination, 5% of the applicants were found ineligible and 85% of the eligible candidates belonged to the general category. If 4,275 eligible candidates belong to the other categories, then how many candidates applied for the examination? So we have to find out how many candidates applied for the examination. It's given here that 5% of the applicants were ineligible and 85% of the eligible candidates belong to the general category. So we have to find the number of eligible candidates first to solve this problem. So let the total number of applicants be n. It's given that 5% of the applicants were found to be ineligible. So 5% of n are ineligible. This means the number of eligible candidates is 95% of n. It's given that 85% of the eligible candidates belong to the general category. This means that 15% of the eligible candidates belong to the other categories. Now we know that the number of eligible candidates is 95% of n. So 15% of the eligible candidates means 15% of 95% of n. So the number of eligible candidates of other categories is equal to 15% of 95% of n. This can be written as 15 by 100 multiplied by 95 by 100 multiplied by n, which is 57n divided by 400. Now it's given that 4,275 eligible candidates belong to the other categories. Here we have found out that 57n divided by 400 are the number of eligible candidates of other categories. So 57n divided by 400 is equal to 4,275. So n on cross multiplication we get n is equal to 4,275 multiplied by 400 divided by 57. On solving we get n is equal to 30,000. So 30,000 students, 30,000 candidates applied for the examination. In an examination, 34% of the students failed in mathematics and 42% failed in English. If 20% of the students failed in both the subjects, then what was the percentage of students who passed in both the subjects? So we have to find the percentage of students who passed in both the subjects. To do that, first we have to find the percentage of students who failed, because the data given here is all about the failed students. Now let's find the percentage of students who failed. It's given that 34% of the students failed in mathematics, 42% failed in English, and 20% of the students failed in both the subjects. Now let's represent this in a Venn diagram. Here in this Venn diagram, this circle represents 34% of the students who failed in mathematics. This circle here represents 42% of the students who failed in English. And the area here represents the 20% of the students who failed in both the subjects. Now, before we solve this problem, first we have to understand an important concept here. Look at this Venn diagram. Here, 34% of the students who failed in mathematics includes this area, which represents 20% of the students who failed in both the subjects. Similarly, 42% of the students who failed in English includes this area, which represents 20% of the students who failed in both the subjects. So this 20% of the students who failed in both the subjects has been counted twice. Now, when you have to find out the percentage of students who failed, since percentage of students who failed in both the subjects will be counted twice, you have to subtract once the percentage of students who failed in both the subjects to avoid repetition. So percentage of students who failed is equal to percentage of students who failed in mathematics plus percentage of students who failed in English minus percentage of students who failed in both the subjects. This is nothing but 34% plus 42% minus 20%, which is 56%. So the percentage of students who failed is 56%. So, to find out the percentage of students who passed in both the subjects, you have to subtract 56% from 100%. So, percentage of students who passed in both the subjects will be 100% minus 56%, which is 44%. Abhishek scores 80% in physics and 66% in chemistry, and the maximum marks of both the papers are 100. What percent does he score in mathematics, which is of 200 marks, if he scores 80% marks in all the three subjects? Now it's given that the maximum marks for physics is 100, and for chemistry it is 100, and for mathematics it is 200 marks. We have to find out his Abhishek's mathematics percentage. Now it's given that Abhishek scores 80% marks in all the three subjects. So he scores 80 marks out of 100 in physics and 80 marks out of 100 in chemistry and 160 marks out of 200 in mathematics. So totally he scores 320 marks out of 400 marks. Because the maximum marks in physics is 100, in chemistry it is 100, and in mathematics is 200. So out of 400 marks, he scores 320 marks. Now it's given that Abhishek scores 80% in physics and 66% in chemistry. We have to find out his mathematics percentage. So let Abhishek's mathematics score percentage be M. Then he scores in physics, he scores 80 marks out of 100. In chemistry, he scores 66 marks out of 100. In mathematics, he scores 2m marks out of 200 because the maximum marks there is 200. So he scores 2m marks out of 200. Now totally he scores 80 plus 66 plus 2m marks out of 400 marks. That is he scores 146 plus 2m marks out of 400. Now when you compare equation 1 and equation 2, you get 146 plus 2m is equal to 320. So 2m is equal to 174. That is m is equal to 87%. So Abhishek's mathematics percentage is 87%. In a test, minimum passing percentage for girls and boys is 35% and 40% respectively. A boy scored 483 marks and failed by 117 marks. What is the minimum passing marks for girls? So we have to find out the minimum passing marks for girls. Now it's given that a boy scored 483 marks and failed by 117 marks. This means that if he had scored 117 more marks, then he would have passed. So passing marks is 483 plus 117, which is 600. 600 is the passing marks. It's given that the minimum passing percentage for boys is 40%. So if minimum passing percentage is 40%, then passing marks is 600. It's given that minimum passing percentage for girls is 35%. So if minimum passing percentage is 40%, then passing marks is 600. If minimum passing percentage is 35%, then passing marks is equal to 600 divided by 40 multiplied by 35, which is 525. So the minimum passing marks for girls is 525. Viewers, please go through this video till you have understood the concept. Solve more percentage problems based on marks to understand the concept clearly. We have posted a video on solved problems on percentages based on price of goods. Please do watch that video as well. If you have liked this video, please like, subscribe and share this video. Thank you.